Hey everybody, Mike Verda. So I recently did a recreation of the light cycle from the original Tron. Remember that, 1982? Here's a shot from the film, and here's my recreation. There's another shot from the film, so those three guys lined up. This is actually a slightly different light cycle, but here's my recreation of that. I did it because my son's become obsessed with the movie now. He's dressing as Sark for Halloween. He's living in the 80s. He actually also just saw Back to the Future and is freaking. Anyway, 80s were a good time. It's still good. Anyway, so a lot went into this, and it was kind of an interesting project because I didn't know that much about the light cycle. The first thing is that there's two types of light cycles, and one of them has got a rounded canopy, like this, and the other one has got a more squared off canopy. The rounded canopy one only shows up in two shots in the entire film, and it's one of the three of them lined up here, and then this one shot of Tron driving away. And the other version, which I think that was the earlier version. I think they refined it because it's a little clunky in some ways when you really learn it. And then the other one's used for the rest of the sequence. Now, when you're doing something like this, the first thing you got to do is watch the sequence 100 billion times looking for all the little details, and that's one of the first ones you catch. And I knew that the actual light cycle was pretty simple. I knew it was actually made out of simple shapes because they didn't have very sophisticated computers. In fact, they barely had them at all. And so to do it, the company called Magi Synthevision, there's a little video on the behind the scenes showing briefly how they were making the light cycle. And if you look, they're just taking simple shapes like a sphere, and then they subtract another sphere from it, and that makes a cutout. Or they take a box and they wrap it around another box, and wherever the two overlap, that makes the shape. And that's how they were modeling it. So I knew they made pipes for the rounded parts of it. They just put these primitives together. And actually one guy out there built a light cycle model doing it exactly the way they did it, which was kind of fun. His light cycle wasn't that accurate at the end, but it was fun to see. Anyway, we have more powerful tools now. But so I knew the shape was simple, and tons of people have modeled light cycles, and they all kind of look like light cycles. But I knew they weren't exactly accurate. So I'm watching the sequence. Now, the thing about it is, when you're doing something like this, you're looking for as close to an orthographic view as possible, something that's closest to a blueprint that has no distortion in it, so you can kind of get a real idea for the proportions. The problem with film is that you get lens distortion. But the nice thing about computer-generated images, especially the ones from Tron, is that they've got perspective, but they don't have much lens distortion, very little, in fact. So I found a frame that had the least amount of distortion in it. At least it was in the center of the frame, it was a faraway shot, and it was a little low resolution, but it was a good starting point. Then I found an image online. I don't know its provenance, but it is ostensibly a render from Magi of the original Tron light cycle. And the issue with it, just like we're talking about, is that it was rendered in perspective, but it provided some details. So I had 2 points. I had a fairly orthographic image from the movie, and then I had this render actually from Magi, which turned out, I found out later, and I figured it out, it was actually distorted itself. It was a little warped or stretched. The circles that were in it were circular, but once I fixed that, I had 2 points with which to model the light cycle. So I modeled the light cycle working in an orthographic view in my modeler, which was Rhino, and then I also set up a perspective camera and modeled it at the same time, matching the perspective from the Magi references, and the two converged to the same solution. So that was 2 points for me to know that my model was accurate. And when it was finally done, as you can see here, it lines up with the Magi reference when shot with the same perspective camera that they used. In the end, you get a screen accurate, or at least as close as I can do it, copy of the original Tron light cycle. Again, interesting process. I could talk a lot about Tron, the look of Tron, because that's also an important part of the look. If you take the light cycle and you don't put these lines on it, the cartoon lines on it, it doesn't look like the light cycle. And if you start to change the lighting and start adding things into the lighting that they didn't have in the 80s, like indirect bounce lights or clear coats, the light cycle falls apart. It starts to look like a toy. So that taught me that very much part of the aesthetic of Tron is is much more akin to a cartoon than something real, and you have to sort of stick with that sort of flat shaded, almost toon shaded, animation look, and that's part of the light cycle, part of the look and part of the feel of it. So that too was interesting. Anyway, there you go. So more than you ever want to know about the Tron light cycle, but if you enjoyed this video, remember that's good, because otherwise you just wasted 5 minutes of your life.